She refused to look at him. Not because she was scared. Not because she was shy. But because she was the only one in the room who didn't want anything from him. And that one decision. It almost cost her everything. But what happened next? No one saw it coming. Before we dive into this incredible story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon button so you never miss our powerful, life-changing content. The air in the VIP section of Club Noir was thick with the scent of expensive cologne and vintage whiskey that I had been a waitress here for 3 years, so the sight of powerful men in tailored suits was nothing new, but tonight, the energy was different. That IT was electric, that IT was tense, all eyes were on the table in the center of the room, all eyes were on him, Damar Kong, the Korean Mafia boss. That he sat with his back straight and his expression carved from stone. 2 bodyguards stood behind him, their eyes scanning the room like hawks. Important businessmen flanked him on either side, their laughter too loud and their smiles too fake. Every server who passed his table walked a little straighter, they spoke a little softer, they hoped to catch his eye, they hoped to receive a nod of approval, or perhaps a lavish tip they had only ever heard about and whispered. Legends. That I adjusted my black apron and picked up my tray. That it was my turn to serve his table. As I walked toward them, the noise of the club seemed to fade, the bass from the music became a distant thump, the clinking of glasses became muffled chimes. That I could feel the weight of everyone watching me. Would I stumble? Would I impress him? I reached the table and began to unload the drinks with practiced ease. A glass of scotch for the man on the left. A champagne flute for the man on the right, and for Mr. Kong, a simple glass of water with lemon. That he had ordered it himself. His eyes were dark and unreadable, they followed my hands as I placed the items on the table. The businessmen watched me, waiting for me to slip up. The bodyguards watched me, waiting for me to make a wrong move. The other waitresses watched me from the corner, waiting to see if I would be the one to finally earn his favor. That I placed the last glass down. The water trembled slightly in its crystal container. That I did not look at him. That I did not offer a bright smile. That I did not linger. That I simply said, "Enjoy your evening," and turned my back. That a sharp intake of breath came from somewhere behind me. That I could feel the shock ripple through the room. How dare I not try to impress the great Mr. Kong? I walked away, my heart beating a steady rhythm in my chest. That I returned to the service bar and began to wipe down the counter. My hands were not shaking. My breath was even. That I had done my job, that was enough. A few moments later, I felt a presence beside me. That it was the head waiter, his face pale with anxiety. "He wants to see you," he whispered, his voice trembling. My heart skipped one beat, then steadied itself. That I nodded and walked back toward the VIP section. This time, the walk felt longer, the music seemed to stop, the patrons seemed to hold their breath. That I reached his table. Damar Kong looked up at me, his eyes were not angry, they were curious. "Sit down," he said. That it was not a request. That I Saturday. The businessmen shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Why did you not look at me?" he asked. His voice was low and calm, like the surface of a deep lake. That I met his gaze for the first time. "Because I am not here to impress you," I said. "I am here to serve your drink, that is my job, and I did it well." Silence, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like a thick blanket. Then, the corner of his mouth twitched. That it was not a smile. That it was something else, something softer. That he leaned forward slightly. "Everyone wants something from me," he said. "They want my money, they want my power, they want my approval, they look at me like I am a prize to be won." He paused, his eyes never leaving mine. "But you looked at me like I was just a man. That a thirsty man, sitting at a table." I did not know what to say. So I said nothing. That he reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick, black wallet. That he placed a stack of bills on the table in front of me. That it was more than I made in a month. "For your honesty," he said. That I looked at the money, then I looked back at him. That I pushed the money gently back across the table. "I do not want your money," I said. "I just want to finish my shift and go home to my daughter." His eyes widened, just a fraction, just enough for me to see. The businessmen gasped, the bodyguards shifted on their feet, but Mr. Kong did not move. That he simply stared at me, and for the first time, I saw something human in his dark eyes. That I saw recognition. That I saw respect. That I stood up from the chair. "Good night, Mr. Kong," I said. I walked away. My legs felt a little weak. My heart was now pounding, but I did not look back. The rest of my shift passed in a blur. My coworkers whispered and stared. That I ignored them. That I thought only of my daughter, waiting for me at home with Mrs. Gable, our elderly neighbor. I thought of her bedtime story. I thought of her goodnight kiss at the end of the night. I clocked out and walked toward the staff exit. The alley was dark and smelled of garbage and rain. I pulled my coat tighter and started walking toward the bus stop. A black car pulled up beside me, the window rolled down. It was one of the bodyguards. "Get in," he said. My blood ran cold. "No, thank you," I said, my voice steadied. I kept walking. The car crept along beside me. "Please," the bodyguard said. His voice was different now, softer. "He insists." I stopped. I took a deep breath. I turned and opened the back door. Mar Kong sat inside, alone. The seat beside him was empty. "Get in," he said. This time, it was a request. I got in. The car pulled away from the curb. We drove in silence for a few blocks, then he spoke. "My mother was a waitress," he said. "She worked double shifts in a small restaurant in Busan. She came home every night with sore feet and a tired smile. She did it for me so I could have a better life." He looked out the window. "I have not thought about her feet in a long time," he whispered. I looked at his reflection in the glass. The hard lines of his face seemed softer in the dim light of the passing street lamps. "I understand," I said. He turned to look at me. "Do you?" I nodded. "My daughter is 6, I said. "She thinks I am a princess who goes to a ball every night. I let her believe it makes the sore feet worth it." He was quiet for a long moment, then he did something unexpected. He smiled. It was a small smile. A sad smile, but it was real. "Where do you live?" he asked. I told him the address. He gave a quiet order to the driver. We drove the rest of the way in a comfortable silence. When the car stopped in front of my building, he spoke again. "I would like to help you," he said. "Not with money, with something else. My mother struggled to find someone to watch me while she worked. She was always worried, always afraid that I have resources, that I have connections. Let me find you a safe, reliable place for your daughter after school. A place where she can play and learn while you work." I stared at him. "Why would you do this?" I asked. He met my eyes. "Because you looked at me and saw a man," he said. "And I looked at you and saw my mother, and I realized I have spent 20 years building an empire, but I have never once tried to ease the burden of a woman like her. A woman like you, let me start now." Tears pricked at my eyes. I blinked them back. "Thank you," I whispered. He nodded. I opened the car door and stepped out into the cool night air. I walked toward my building. At the door, I turned around. The black car was still there, the window was still down. Mar Khan raised a hand in a small wave. I raised mine in return. Then I went inside. Up the stairs, down the hall. I opened the door to my small apartment. Mrs. Gable was asleep on the couch, a book open on her chest. I tiptoed past her and into the tiny bedroom. My daughter was asleep. Her small chest rose and fell with peaceful breaths. Her stuffed rabbit was tucked under her arm. I knelt beside her bed. I brushed a curl away from her forehead, and I smiled, not because of the money I had refused, not because of the powerful man I had met, but because, for the first time in a long time, I did not feel so alone. Someone, somewhere, had seen me, really seen me, and instead of trying to change me, he had simply offered to help. I kissed my daughter's forehead. "Sweet dreams, my love," I whispered. I stood up and walked to the window. I looked down at the street. The black car was gone, but the feeling of being seen remained. It wrapped around me like a warm blanket. It filled the small apartment with a light that needed no electricity. I knew the road ahead would still be hard. I knew my feet would still ache tomorrow night. But I also knew that kindness exists in the most unexpected places. It hides behind cold eyes and hard faces. It waits beneath layers of power and fear, and sometimes, all it takes to find it is the simple act of looking at someone and seeing nothing more, and nothing less, than a human being. I got ready for bed. I lay down on my small mattress. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, I slept without dreaming of struggle. I slept peacefully. I slept deeply, and in the morning, when the sun streamed through the thin curtains, I woke up to the sound of my daughter's laughter. She was in the kitchen, trying to make pancakes. Flour was everywhere. She was wearing my apron, which was far too big for her. She turned to me with a grin that was missing 2 front teeth. "Mommy," she shouted. "I made you breakfast." I laughed. A real laugh. A laugh that came from somewhere deep and true. I walked over and hugged her tight. Flour puffed up around us. They were the worst pancakes I had ever tasted. they were burned on the outside and raw on the inside, they were perfect. As we sat at the tiny table, eating our imperfect breakfast, there was a knock at the door. I opened it. A well-dressed woman stood there with a warm smile and a folder in her hand. "Good morning," she said. "Mr. Kong sent me that I am here to discuss the after-school program for your daughter, whenever you are ready." I glanced back at my little girl, who was watching with wide, curious eyes. I looked at the woman. I smiled. "Please," I said, opening the door wider. "Come in." The woman stepped inside, her heels clicking softly against the worn linoleum. My daughter slid off her chair and came to stand beside me, pressing her small body against my leg. She was shy with strangers, especially ones who arrived so early and looked so important. "This is my daughter, Aya," I said, placing a hand on her head. "She is 6 years old, she loves to draw and she hates broccoli." The woman laughed, a genuine sound that filled the tiny kitchen. "That is excellent information," she said. "I will make a note about the broccoli. My name is Unji. I work for Mr. Kang's foundation. We provide support for working families." She knelt down so she was at Aya's eye level. "Hello, Aya. I hear you like to draw. What is your favorite thing to draw?" Aya looked up at me for permission. I nodded. "Rainbows," Aya whispered. "And cats, but mostly rainbows with cats under them." Unji's smile widened. "Rainbows with cats under them, that sounds wonderful. I would love to see one of your drawings someday." Aya nodded seriously, then slowly retreated to her chair to guard her pancakes. Unji stood up and opened the folder she was carrying. Inside were colorful brochures and forms with happy pictures of children playing. "There are 3 excellent programs near this neighborhood," she said. "All are safe, all are affordable. Mr. Kong has arranged for a full scholarship for Aya to attend whichever one you prefer. Transportation is included. She will be picked up from school and brought to the program, and you can collect her after your shift." I stared at the brochures. The buildings looked clean and bright, the children looked happy, the teachers looked kind. This was not the kind of place I could ever afford. This was not the kind of opportunity that came to people like me. "Why?" I asked again. The question escaped before I could stop it. Unji closed the folder and looked at me with understanding in her eyes. "Mr. Kong does not explain his decisions," she said. "But I have worked for him for 12 years. I have learned to see what he sees. He sees someone who refused to bend. He sees someone who values herself, and he sees a child who deserves the same chances he wished his mother could have given him." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small card. It was plain white with only a phone number printed on it in black ink. "This is my direct line," she said. "You call me anytime, for any reason. If Aya is sick, if you are sick, if you just need someone to talk to, that is what this is. It is not charity. It is not a favor. It is a connection between people who understand hard work." I took the card. It felt heavy in my hand, heavier than the stack of bills he had offered me the night before. "Thank you," I said, and this time, the words held everything. They held the exhaustion of 3 years of double shifts, they held the worry of every night I left Aya with a sitter, they held the loneliness of struggling alone in a city that did not care, they held the hope that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. Unji nodded, she seemed to understand all of the things I had not said. "Take your time choosing," she said. "Look through the brochures, visit the programs if you want, call me when you are ready." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh," she said. "One more thing. Mr. Kong asked me to tell you that he will be at Club Noir again next Thursday. He said he would like you to serve his table. He said the water was perfect last night, not too cold, not too warm, just right." I felt a smile tug at my lips. "Tell him I will be there," I said. "And tell him the water will be just right again." Unji left. I closed the door and leaned against it. Aya was still at the table, pushing a burned piece of pancake around her plate. "Mommy," she said. "Who was that lady?" I walked over and sat down beside her. I picked up my fork and took another bite of the terrible pancake. "That was someone who wants to help us," I said. Aya tilted her head. "Help us do what?" I looked at the brochures on the table. I looked at my daughter's flour-dusted face. I looked at the small, cramped kitchen that suddenly felt a little bigger. "Help us find a place for you after school," I said. "A place with other children. A place where you can draw rainbows and cats all afternoon." Aya's eyes grew wide. Can I bring my own crayons? You can bring whatever you want. She thought about this for a moment. Even my purple one that is almost gone. Especially that one. She nodded, satisfied with my answer, and went back to destroying her pancake. That I finished my breakfast and looked at the clock that I had 4 hours before my next shift. 4 hours to visit a program. 4 hours to make a choice that could change everything. That I stood up and started cleaning the kitchen. Aya chattered happily about her drawings, the flour dusted every surface, the sun streamed through the thin curtains. And for the first time in a very long time, the small apartment did not feel like a cage. That it felt like a beginning. That I washed the dishes and dried them carefully. That I helped Aya get dressed in her favorite rainbow shirt. That I packed a small bag with her crayons and her notebook. Then I picked up the brochures and looked at them again. There was one with a picture of a garden. Children were planting flowers in small pots. There was one with a library in the background. Children were sitting in a circle, listening to a story. There was one with an art room. The walls were covered in paintings and drawings. That I pointed to the art room picture. What do you think of this one? I asked Aya. She climbed onto my lap to look. Her small finger touched the picture. Rainbows, she said. Lots of rainbows. That is true, there are lots of rainbows. Can we go there? I looked at the address on the brochure. That it was 20 minutes away by bus. That we had time. Yes, I said. We can go there. We left the apartment together, hand in hand. The city was loud and busy, buses rumbled past, people hurried along the sidewalks, but walking with Aya slowed everything down. She stopped to look at every pigeon, she waved at every passing dog, she asked a million questions about why the sky was blue and where clouds went when they disappeared. That we took the bus to the address on the brochure. The building was even nicer than the picture. That it was painted a cheerful yellow. There was a small playground in front with swings and a slide. A fence with a gate surrounded it all. That we walked up to the front door. A bell chimed softly when we entered. The woman at the front desk looked up and smiled. Welcome, she said. How can I help you today? I held up the brochure. I am here about the after-school program, I said. For my daughter. The woman's smile grew warmer. Wonderful. My name is Mrs. Choi, let me show you around. She came out from behind the desk and knelt down to greet Aya. Hello there. I heard someone likes to draw. Aya nodded, hiding slightly behind my leg. Well, you have come to the right place. That we have more crayons than you can imagine, and paper, lots and lots of paper. Aya peeked out from behind my leg. Do you have purple? Mrs. Choi laughed. We have 3 different shades of purple, maybe even 4. You will have to come see. She stood up and gestured for us to follow. We walked through bright hallways lined with children's artwork. We peeked into classrooms where children were playing games and doing homework. We saw the art room, which was even more beautiful than the brochure picture. There were easels and paints and clay and every art supply imaginable. Aya's hand tightened on mine, her eyes were huge. Mommy, she whispered. It is like a dream. I squeezed her hand. I know, baby, I know. We saw the outdoor play area in the back. There was a garden with real vegetables growing, there was a sandbox with buckets and shovels, there were tricycles and balls and jump ropes. Mrs. Choi explained the schedule, she explained the teachers, she explained the meals and the snacks and the quiet time for children who needed to rest. She explained everything with such pride and love that I could feel my heart swelling. When the tour was over, we sat in her office. Any questions? She asked. I had 1,000 questions, but only one mattered. When can she start? Mrs. Choi checked her calendar. Monday would be perfect if that works for you. We have a new session starting, all the children will be learning each other's names. It is a good time to join. I looked at Aya, Aya looked at me. Monday? Aya asked. Yes, I said. Monday. Aya thought about this. Can I wear my rainbow shirt? You can wear your rainbow shirt every single day if you want. Mrs. Choi laughed again. We would love to see that rainbow shirt every day. We completed the forms together. I wrote my name. I wrote Aya's name. I wrote my emergency contact information, and then I wrote nothing about payment, because Eunji had already handled everything. When we walked out of the yellow building, the sun seemed brighter, the air seemed fresher, the city seemed less loud and more like music. Aya skipped ahead of me, her small bag bouncing against her back. "Mommy," she shouted. "I am going to draw 1,000 rainbows." "Draw 1,000,000, I called back. "I will hang them all on the refrigerator." She laughed and spun in a circle. Her joy was so pure it hurt to watch. It hurt because I had been so afraid for so long, afraid that I could not give her enough, afraid that my best was not good enough, afraid that she would grow up feeling the weight of our struggle. But standing there on the sidewalk, watching her spin, I realized something. She did not feel the weight, she felt my love. Every single day, that was enough for her. And maybe, just maybe, it was enough for me too. We took the bus home. We ate lunch together. I helped her practice writing her name. She drew me a picture of a rainbow with a cat under it. The cat had a smile on its face. I put it on the refrigerator with a magnet. Then it was time for me to get ready for work. Mrs. Gable arrived right on time, as she always did. She was a retired teacher with silver hair and a gentle voice. She brought a book to read to Aya and knitting to keep her hands busy. She was the best neighbor I could have asked for. "Any news?" she asked, settling onto the couch. I told her about the morning. I told her about the yellow building and the art room, and Monday. I told her about Mr. Kong and Unji and the card in my pocket. Mrs. Gable listened carefully, nodding as I spoke. When I finished, she reached out and took my hand. Her skin was soft and warm. "You deserve this," she said. "You have worked so hard for so long, you deserve this." Tears filled my eyes. I blinked them away. "Thank you," I whispered. "For everything, for always being here." She patted my hand. "Go to work, Aya, and I will be fine. We are going to read about a dragon who learns to dance." Aya giggled from the bedroom doorway. "A dancing dragon." "Go," Mrs. Gable said again. "Go and serve that water just right." I laughed. I kissed Aya goodbye. I hugged Mrs. Gable, and I walked out the door. The bus ride to Club Noir felt different tonight. The city light seemed warmer, the other passengers seemed friendlier, even the driver smiled at me when I got off. I walked into the club through the staff entrance. The familiar smell of perfume and alcohol greeted me, the familiar sounds of preparation filled the air, glasses clinking, ice shifting. Laughter from the early crowd. I changed into my uniform. I tied my apron. I pinned my hair back, and I walked onto the floor. My coworkers looked at me differently tonight, some with curiosity, some with respect, some with envy. I ignored them all. I had a job to do. I had tables to serve. I had water to deliver. The night moved quickly, tables filled, orders were taken, drinks were delivered, tips were earned, and then, at exactly 10 o'clock, he arrived. Kong walked through the door with his bodyguards and his businessmen. The energy in the room shifted instantly. All eyes turned to him, all conversations quieted for a moment, all breaths were held. He walked to his usual table. He sat down, and then he looked around. He was looking for someone. He was looking for me. I picked up a glass of water with lemon, not too cold, not too warm. Just right. I walked toward his table. The crowd parted for me. I did not know if they moved out of respect for him or curiosity about me. It did not matter. I reached his table. I placed the water in front of him. I met his eyes. I smiled. A real smile. "Good evening, Mr. Kong," I said. He looked at the water. He looked at me. He picked up the glass. He took a sip. He set it down, then he smiled back, the same small, real smile from the car. "Just right," he said. The businessmen at the table exchanged confused glances. They did not understand what was happening. They did not understand why the most powerful man in the room was smiling at a waitress over a glass of water. They did not need to understand them. Kong gestured to the empty chair beside him. "Sit with me for a moment," he said. "I have a few minutes before my meeting begins." I glanced around the room. Why other tables needed attention, but something in his eyes told me this was important. I sat down. He leaned back in his chair, his posture relaxed in a way I had not seen before. "How is your daughter?" he asked. The question was simple, but the sincerity behind it was not. "She is wonderful," I said. "She is excited about Monday. We visited the program today, the one with the art room. She already has plans to draw 1,000,000 rainbows." He nodded slowly. 1,000,000 rainbows, that is a lot of rainbows. She is a very determined child. He smiled again. She gets it from her mother. I felt warmth spread through my chest. "I wanted to thank you," I said. Properly, what you have done for us.it is more than I could ever repay. He held up a hand to stop me. You do not owe me anything, he said. You owe me nothing. What I did was for myself, for the part of me that still remembers what it felt like to be a small boy watching his mother come home with sore feet. He paused, looking down at the water glass. She died when I was 15. Cancer. She worked until the very end, refused to stop, said she needed to provide for me. That I tried to tell her that I did not need things, that I needed her, but she would not listen. His voice was quiet now. The powerful Mafia boss was gone. That in his place sat a man who had lost his mother too young. A man who still carried that pain with him. I am sorry, I said. That he looked up at me. Do not be sorry. Be here. Be present for your daughter. Work hard, yes, but do not forget to rest. Do not forget to let her see you happy. That is the gift she will carry with her, not the things you buy, the moments you share. I thought about the burned pancakes that morning. That I thought about Aya's laughter as she spun on the sidewalk. That I thought about the drawing on my refrigerator. You are wise, I said. That he shook his head. I am old enough to know what I lost. That is not wisdom, that is just time passing. A man in a suit approached the table and whispered something in his ear. He nodded and stood up. Work calls, he said. Enjoy the rest of your shift, and please, let me know how Monday goes. Unji will check in with you. He started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and your other tables are wondering where you are. I believe table 7 has been waiting for a refill on their drinks. I laughed. I actually laughed in front of the Korean Mafia boss. I will get right on that, I said. That he walked away, his bodyguards falling into step behind him. That I watched him go. Then I stood up and got back to work. The rest of the night passed in a blur of activity, but my mind kept drifting back to our conversation. His words about being present. About letting Aya see me happy. That I thought about all the nights I came home exhausted and collapsed into bed. That I thought about all the mornings I rushed through breakfast to get to sleep. I thought about all the moments I had missed because I was too tired to be present. Monday morning arrived faster than I expected. Aya woke me up at 6 o'clock by jumping on my bed. Mommy, today is the day, today is the day. I groaned and pulled the pillow over my head. She snatched it away. No sleeping, we have to get ready. I need to wear my rainbow shirt, and my rainbow socks, and I need to bring my crayons, and my notebook, and my purple one that is almost gone. I opened one eye. She was already fully dressed, rainbow shirt, rainbow socks, her small backpack was packed and sitting by the door. She had even brushed her hair, mostly. Did you sleep at all? I asked. A little, she said. But I was too excited. Come on, Mommy, get up, get up. I laughed and swung my legs out of bed. The apartment was filled with her energy. It bounced off the walls and filled every corner with light. We ate breakfast together, real breakfast, eggs and toast and orange juice. And no burned pancakes today. I wanted to remember this morning clearly. I wanted to remember every detail. The way the sun hit her hair, the way she chattered about rainbows and cats and new friends. The way she kept checking the clock to see if it was time to go. At 8:30, we left the apartment, hand in hand, her small fingers wrapped tightly around mine. We walked to the bus stop. We rode the bus together. She pressed her face against the window and pointed at everything we passed. Look, Mommy, a dog, look, Mommy, a truck, look, Mommy, a bird. I looked at all of it. I looked at the dog and the truck and the bird. I looked at her reflection in the glass. I looked at her smile, and I was present, really present, for the first time in years. We arrived at the yellow building. Mrs. Choi was waiting at the front door. Good morning, Aya, good morning, Mom, we are so excited to have you today. Aya squeezed my hand tighter, but she did not hide behind my leg. She looked at the building, she looked at the playground, she looked at the children playing inside. Mommy, she whispered. Will you stay with me for a little while? I knelt down beside her. For as long as you need, I said. We can stay together until you feel ready, and if you never feel ready today, that is okay too. We can try again tomorrow. She thought about this. She looked at Mrs. Choi, who was smiling gently. She looked at the art room through the window. She saw a girl about her age sitting at a small table with a paintbrush in her hand. The girl looked up, she waved, Aya waved back. I think I am ready, she said. Are you sure? She nodded. Okay, that I will pick you up after work, and you can tell me all about your day. I hugged her tight, she hugged me back, then she took Mrs. Choi's hand and walked toward the door. At the door, she turned around. Mommy, I love you. I love you too, baby, have the best day. She disappeared inside. That I stood there for a long moment, the sun was warm on my face, the sound of children laughing drifted through the windows, and I cried, not sad tears, not worried tears, just tears, tears for all the years of struggle, tears for all the moments I had missed, tears for this moment I was finally having. That I wiped my face and walked back to the bus stop. That I went home. That I slept out a real sleep. Deep and peaceful and without dreams. When I woke up, the apartment was quiet, too quiet. That I checked the clock, almost time to pick her up. That I got dressed and took the bus back to the yellow building. That I arrived early. That I stood outside the fence and watched through the window. Aya was in the art room, she was sitting at a table with the girl who had waved, they were both painting. Aya was painting a rainbow, the other girl was painting a cat, they were laughing, they were friends. Mrs. Choi came outside to stand with me. She had a wonderful day, she said. She made a friend, her name is Mina. They painted together for almost 2 hours, she ate all her lunch, she even tried the broccoli. She hates broccoli. Mrs. Choi smiled. Mina loves broccoli. Aya wanted to be like her new friend. So she tried it, she said it was not as terrible as she thought. I laughed, the sound felt good, the door opened and children began streaming out. Aya was one of the last, she was holding a painting carefully in both hands. When she saw me, she ran. Mommy, mommy, look what I made. She held up the painting. It was a rainbow. A huge, beautiful rainbow, and under it sat 2 small figures holding hands. One had rainbow shirt. One had a paintbrush. This is me and Mina, she said. We are friends forever. I knelt down and hugged her. Forever is a long time, I said. I know that we already decided. I picked her up and spun her around, she laughed and laughed and laughed. That night, after Mrs. Gable went home and Aya was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table. I looked at the new drawing on the refrigerator. 2 small friends under a rainbow. I thought about Mr. Kong. I thought about his mother. I thought about his words. Be present. Let her see you happy. I got up and walked to the small mirror by the door. I looked at my reflection. I looked tired. I looked older than my years, but I also looked different. There was something in my eyes that had not been there before. Hope. I went to bed. I slept well. The weeks passed. Aya thrived at the yellow building. She came home every day with new drawings and new stories. Mina became her best friend. They had sleepovers on weekends. Mrs. Gable loved having them both. She taught them to knit. They made terrible scarves and wore them proudly. I kept working at Club Noir de Mar. Kong came every Thursday. He always ordered water with lemon. I always brought it to him. We talked sometimes, about small things, about Aya's drawings, about his meetings, about nothing important, but the talks mattered. They reminded me that kindness exists in unexpected places. One Thursday, he did not come. I waited, his table sat empty all night. I asked the head waiter if he knew anything. He did not. The next Thursday, he still did not come. I started to worry. I pulled out the card Unji had given me. I called the number, she answered on the first ring. Hello. It is me, I said. The waitress. I was wondering if Mr. Kong is okay. He has not come to the club. There was a long pause. He is in the hospital, Unji said. He had a heart attack last week. He is recovering, but he is asking for you. My heart stopped. For me. He will not explain why. He just says he needs to see you, the waitress who served him water. I looked at the clock. My shift was over in an hour. Where is he? I asked. She gave me the address. It was a private hospital across the city. I finished my shift in a daze. I took the bus home. Mrs. Gable was asleep on the couch. I woke her gently. I need to go somewhere, I whispered. Can you stay? She nodded sleepily. Of course, dear. Is everything okay? I do not know. I will explain tomorrow. I took another bus across the city. The hospital was tall and modern. It was the kind of place where rich people went to recover from things regular people died from. I gave my name at the front desk. A nurse escorted me to a private room on the top floor. The room was quiet, machines beeped softly, flowers filled every surface, and in the bed, looking smaller than I had ever seen him, Lay Mr. Kong that he was awake, his eyes found me the moment I walked in. You came, he said, his voice was weak that it did not sound like him. Of course I came, I said, walking to his bedside. You asked for me. He gestured to a chair that I sat down. I have been thinking, he said. In this bed, with all this time to think that I have been thinking about my mother, and about you, and about all the people I have hurt in my life. He closed his eyes for a moment. I built an empire on fear, he said. People follow me because they are afraid of what will happen if they do not, but you were never afraid of me. I was a little afraid, I admitted that. He opened his eyes and looked at me. Really? At first, yes, you are the Korean Mafia boss, everyone is afraid of you at first. He almost smiled. But you served me water anyway. I did that. It was my job. You looked at me like I was a man, not a monster. I reached out and took his hand that it was cold and thin. I looked at you and saw someone who loved his mother, I said. That is not a monster, that is a human being. His eyes glistened. I am going to change, he said. When I get out of here that I am going to change everything, the way I do business, the way I treat people, that I am going to use my power for something good. That is a big promise, I said. I know, but I have seen what is possible, that I have seen what happens when someone shows kindness for no reason. He showed me that a waitress with a glass of water. I squeezed his hand. A man with a kind heart. We sat in silence for a while, the machines beeped, the flowers smelled sweet, and two people who should never have met held hands in a hospital room. When I finally left, the sun was coming up that I took the bus home through the morning light that I walked into my apartment. Mrs. Gable was making coffee, Aya was still asleep that I sat at the kitchen table and looked at the refrigerator that it was covered in drawings now, rainbows and cats and two small friends holding hands, and in the center, a new one I had not seen before that it was a picture of three people a woman in a waitress uniform a little girl with a rainbow shirt, and a man in a suit, they were all holding hands, underneath. In Aya's careful writing, it said, my family. I stared at the drawing for a long time, tears streamed down my face. But they were not sad tears, they were not happy tears, they were something else, they were the tears of someone who had been alone for so long that she had forgotten what it felt like to be seen. To be loved. To be part of something. Mrs. Gable came and stood beside me, she looked at the drawing, she put her arm around my shoulders. Looks like your family is growing, she said softly. That I nodded that I could not speak. Aya appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Mommy, why are you crying? I opened my arms, she ran into them that I held her tight, I whispered. Because these are happy tears, baby. She hugged me back, then she looked at the refrigerator. You saw my new picture, she exclaimed. I drew all of us, you and me and Mr. Kong, he is our friend now, right? I looked at the drawing that I looked at my daughter that I thought about the man in the hospital bed who wanted to change his life because a waitress served him water that I thought about the yellow building and the art room and a little girl named Mina that I thought about Mrs. Gable and her knitting and her gentle heart that I thought about all the kindness that had flowed into my life since that night when I refused to impress anyone. Yes, I said. He is our friend now. Aya nodded, satisfied with this answer. Good, can we visit him? I want to show him my drawings that he might like the one with the rainbow cat. I laughed. I am sure he would love that we will visit him soon. Today. Maybe not today, but soon. Okay, can we have pancakes for breakfast? Pancakes sound perfect. Mrs. Gable moved toward the kitchen. I will make them, she said. You two sit, talk, enjoy. Aya climbed onto my lap that we sat at the table and watched the sun fill the room. She told me about a game she played with Mina, she told me about a new girl who joined their class, she told me about a caterpillar they found in the garden that I listened that I was present that I let her see me happy. The pancakes arrived, they were perfect, not burned, not raw, just right, just like the water, just like this moment. Just like this life that was slowly, beautifully, becoming something I never dared to dream. 3 weeks passed before Mr. Kong was strong enough for visitors. Aya asked about him every single day, she added him to almost every new drawing. There he was, under rainbows, there he was, holding hands with cats, there he was, sitting at our kitchen table in a picture she drew after I described my visit. "He looks like he needs soup," she announced one morning, studying her latest creation. "All sick people need soup." I smiled. "That is very thoughtful. We should bring him soup when we visit. We will ask if he is allowed to have soup." She nodded seriously, then returned to her drawing. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. My phone buzzed with a number I did not recognize that I answered anyway. "He is asking for you both," Unji said. "Today that if you are able." I looked at the clock. Aya would be finished at the yellow building in an hour. "We can come this evening," I said. "I will send a car." "You do not have to, I will send a car." The line went quiet. That I smiled and hung up. At 6 o'clock, a black car pulled up in front of our building. Aya was waiting at the window. She had been waiting for almost an hour. "The car is here, the car is here, Mommy, the car is here." She grabbed her backpack, which was stuffed with at least 15 drawings. She had spent all afternoon choosing the perfect ones. That I put on my coat and took her hand. That we walked downstairs together. The driver held the door open for us. Aya climbed in like she had been doing this her whole life. "This is fancy," she announced. "It is very fancy," I agreed. "Can we get a car like this?" "Probably not." "That is okay, our bus is fun too." The drive to the hospital was smooth and quiet. Aya pressed her face to the window and watched the city lights blur past. She asked questions about every building we passed. That I answered what I could. That we arrived at the hospital, the same tall, modern building, the same quiet lobby, but this time, a nurse was waiting for us. "Right this way," she said with a warm smile. "She has been talking about this visit all week." Aya whispered to me. "She?" I was confused too. That we followed the nurse to the elevator. That we rode up to the top floor. That we walked down the familiar hallway, but instead of stopping at Mr. Kang's room, the nurse kept walking. She stopped at a different door. A door with a small sign that read, "Private Residence." She knocked gently. A voice from inside said, "Come in." The nurse opened the door and gestured for us to enter. We stepped inside, and stopped. The room was not a hospital room. It was an apartment. A beautiful, warm apartment with windows covering an entire wall. The sunset poured through them, painting everything in gold. There was a kitchen. A living room. A hallway leading to what must have been bedrooms, and in the center of the living room, sitting in a comfortable chair with a blanket over his legs, was Mr. Kong, but he was not alone. Beside him stood a woman. An older woman with silver hair and gentle eyes and a smile that looked exactly like his. She was holding his hand. "Mommy," Aya whispered. "Who is that?" I could not speak. I could only stare. Dimar. Kong looked at us and smiled, the real smile, the one only a few people ever saw. "Come in," he said. "Come in and meet my mother." The world stopped. I felt the floor shift beneath my feet. His mother, the mother who died when he was 15. The mother he told me about in the car that night, the mother whose sore feet he remembered with such pain. "She is alive," I whispered. "She is very alive," the woman said. Her voice was soft and warm. "She is also very confused about why her son has been telling strangers she is dead for the past 30 years. Mr. Kong looked down at his hands. "It was easier," he said quietly, "to let people think she was gone. To protect her from my world, from the danger, from the enemies I was making. I sent her away. I told her to go live with her sister in Canada. I told her to tell everyone she knew that she was starting a new life, and then I told everyone here that she had died." He looked up at me. "I visited her every year, every single year for 30 years. I flew to Canada and I sat in her kitchen and I let her make me soup, and then I flew back and I told no one. Not a single person, until now." His mother walked toward us. She knelt down in front of Aya. "You must be the famous artist," she said. "I have heard so much about your rainbows." Aya stared at her with wide eyes. "You are not dead," Aya said. "No, I am not dead." "That is good. I am glad you are not dead." His mother laughed. It was a beautiful sound, full of life and love. "I am glad too, very glad." She stood up and looked at me. Her eyes were kind and knowing. "My son has told me everything," she said. "About the waitress who served him water, about the daughter who draws rainbows, about the night in the car when he finally remembered his mother's feet." Tears filled her eyes. I have waited 30 years for him to remember those feet, that I have waited 30 years for him to understand why I worked so hard, not for money, not for things, for him. So he could have a life with choices. She reached out and took my hands. And now, because of you, he understands, that he finally understands. I did not know what to say, that I did not know how to process any of this. So I just held her hands and let the tears come. Aya, as always, broke the silence. Can I show you my drawings now? She asked. I brought a lot. His mother laughed again. Please do, that I love drawings more than almost anything. We spent the next hour in that beautiful apartment. Aya laid out her drawings on the coffee table. She explained each one in detail. Kong watched from his chair, his eyes soft. His mother sat on the floor with Aya, asking questions and pointing at colors, and I sat on the couch, watching it all, this impossible scene, this beautiful, impossible scene. At one point, Mr. Kong caught my eye. He gestured for me to come closer. I moved to the chair beside him. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For everything, for the water, for the honesty, for the courage to look at me like a man, for visiting me in the hospital, for bringing her. He looked at his mother and Aya, heads bent together over a drawing of a cat wearing a crown. I was going to die in that hospital, he said. The doctors said my heart was too weak, they said I might not make it, and all I could think about was her. My mother, alive and well in Canada, thinking I was too busy to visit, thinking I did not need her anymore. I realized I had spent 30 years protecting her from my life, and in doing so, I had stolen 30 years of her presence from myself. He looked back at me. I called her the next day. I told her everything. I told her to come. She was on a plane within 12 hours, she has been here ever since, and my heart, it got stronger. The doctors do not understand it, they say it is a miracle. He smiled. I know it is not a miracle. It is my mother. It is soup. It is love. I reached out and took his hand. I am glad she is here, I said. I am glad you are here. He squeezed my hand. So am I. His mother looked up from the drawings. You too, she called. Stop being serious and come look at this cat. It is wearing a crown and riding a rainbow. This is important artwork. Aya giggled. Kong laughed. I laughed, and in that golden sunset light, in that apartment that should not exist, with that mother who was not dead, we became something new, something none of us had expected. A family, not by blood, not by obligation, but by choice. By water and rainbows and burned pancakes and soup. By kindness that refused to impress. By love that grew in the most unlikely soil. The weeks turned into months. Kong recovered fully. He kept his promise. He changed his business. He used his power for good. He funded programs for working mothers. He built after-school centers in every part of the city. He visited the yellow building often. The children called him Mr. Kong. They did not know he was the Korean Mafia boss. They only knew he brought books and listened to their stories and always asked about their drawings. His mother moved into an apartment 2 blocks from us. She made soup for Aya after school. She taught me to cook her son's favorite dishes. She became the grandmother Aya never had. Mrs. Gable was not replaced, she was joined. The 2 women became fast friends. They knitted together, they gossiped together, they spoiled Aya together. And on Thursday nights, we all gathered at Mr. Kang's apartment for dinner. His mother cooked, Aya drew. Mrs. Gable knitted. Kong and I talked, about everything, about nothing, about the past and the future and the beautiful, unexpected present. One Thursday, as we sat around the table after dinner, Aya made an announcement. I have decided something, she said. Everyone turned to look at her. She was 6 years old going on 60. What have you decided? His mother asked. Aya looked at Mr. Kong. I have decided you should marry my mommy. The room went silent. I felt my face turn red. Kang's mother covered her mouth to hide a smile. Mrs. Gable's knitting needle stopped clicking. Kong looked at me. I looked at him. Aya waited for an answer. That is a very big decision, Mr. Kong said carefully. I know, but I have thought about it a lot. You make her laugh, she does not laugh enough, and you look at her like she is a rainbow. That is how you should look at someone you love. His mother could not contain herself any longer, she burst out laughing. Mrs. Gable joined her. Soon they were both laughing so hard that tears ran down their faces. Aya looked confused. "What is so funny?" she asked. "Nothing, sweetheart," his mother said, wiping her eyes. "Nothing at all, you are just very wise for your age." "I know," Aya said. "That is what Mommy says." Mr. Kong stood up from the table that he walked around to where I was sitting, that he knelt down beside my chair, that he took my hand. "Aya," he said. "Your mother and I have been talking, and we have been thinking, and we have been feeling things that are hard to put into words." I looked at him, then my heart was pounding. "We have." I whispered, that he smiled at me. "We have." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box that he opened it. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, perfect, not too flashy, not too plain, just right. "I was going to wait," he said. "I was going to find the perfect moment, but it turns out the perfect moment finds you, and it usually involves a 6-year-old with very strong opinions." Aya gasped from across the room. "Mommy, it is a ring, a real ring." I could not breathe, that I could not think, that I could only look at him. At this man who had walked into Club Noir 3 years ago with stone eyes and a hard face. At this man who had been softened by a glass of water and a waitress who refused to impress him. At this man who had brought his mother back from the dead and built after-school programs and learned to laugh at dinner tables. "I love you," he said. "I love your honesty, that I love your strength, that I love the way you serve water like it matters, because to you, everything matters, that I love the way you look at your daughter, that I love the way you looked at me when I was nothing but a powerful man in a suit, that I love you." Tears streamed down my face. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes." He slid the ring onto my finger. That it fit perfectly, just right. Aya cheered. His mother cried. Mrs. Gable clapped, and in that moment, surrounded by love and laughter and the family we had built from nothing, I understood the moral of this story. It was not about money or power or impressing anyone. It was about being real. It was about showing up as yourself, even when everyone else is trying to be something else. It was about looking at people and seeing humans, not opportunities. It was about kindness that asks for nothing in return. It was about the courage to serve water like it matters, because it does. Everything matters, every interaction, every choice, every moment of presence. You never know who is watching, you never know who needs to be seen. You never know when a glass of water will change a life. My life changed because I refused to impress a man. His life changed because a waitress looked at him like he was human, and together, we built something beautiful, not perfect, nothing is perfect, but beautiful, full of rainbows and cats and burned pancakes and soup, full of love and tenderness and understanding and immeasurable work, full of people with kind hearts and souls, ready to share each other's pain. The wedding was small. Aya was the flower girl. She threw rainbow-colored petals down the aisle with great seriousness. Mr. Kang's mother cried through the entire ceremony. Mrs. Gable knitted us a blanket as a gift. It was hideous. We loved it. Unji came. So did the bodyguards, who smiled for the first time in their lives. So did the children from the yellow building, who drew pictures for us to hang on our refrigerator. We said our vows in a garden, the same garden where Aya had planted her first flower months earlier. The sun was warm, the flowers were bright. And when we kissed, Aya cheered louder than anyone. Our life together is not a fairy tale. There are still hard days, there is still work, there is still pain, but now, there is also us. There is also soup on the stove and drawings on the refrigerator and laughter at the dinner table. There is also a man who looks at me like I am a rainbow. There is also a daughter who grows wiser every day. There is also a mother who came back from the dead to knit terrible scarves with her best friend. There is also a family, built from water, built from honesty, built from the courage to be real in a world that rewards performance. And every night, before I go to sleep, I look at the ring on my finger. I remember that night at Club Noir, the tension, the fear, the moment I turned my back on the most powerful man in the room. I remember the gasps, the shock, the feeling of everyone watching, and I smile, because I did not know it then. I could not have known it then, but that moment of refusal was the beginning of everything. That glass of water was the first page of a story I never expected to write, and the best part, the story is not over. It continues every morning when I wake up next to him. It continues every afternoon when I pick Aya up from school. It continues every evening when we gather around the table with the people we love. Life keeps going, love keeps growing, and kindness keeps flowing from the most unexpected places. Last week, Aya came home with a new drawing that it showed a large table filled with people that I counted them. There was me, there was her, there was Mr. Kong, there was his mother, there was Mrs. Gable, there was Mina and her family, there was Eun-ji, there were the bodyguards, there were children from the yellow building, there were teachers and neighbors and friends. Underneath the table, she had drawn a small cat. Underneath the cat, she had written one word: family. I asked her why she wrote that. She looked at me like I was silly. Because that is what family is, mommy. It is not just people who share your blood. It is people who share your table. I hung the drawing on the refrigerator, right in the center, where everyone could see it, where it belongs, and tonight, as I sit here telling you this story, I want you to remember something. You never know who is watching, you never know who needs to be seen, you never know when a simple act of honesty will change everything. So be real. Be kind, serve your water like it matters, because it does. Everything matters. And the family you build might just be the one you never expected to find. The years passed like pages in a book, each one filled with moments I once thought impossible. Aya grew taller and wiser, her drawings evolving from rainbows to portraits to intricate scenes of our ever-expanding family. She still added a small cat to every picture. Some things never changed. Mr. Kong, my husband, kept his promise that he transformed his empire into a foundation that helped thousands of working families. That he never asked for credit or recognition. That he simply did the work, quietly and consistently, the way his mother had taught him. His mother lived with us for 5 wonderful years before she passed away peacefully in her sleep. She died on a Thursday night after eating her own soup and kissing Aya goodnight. She was happy, she was loved, she knew her son had finally found peace. Mrs. Gable moved into the apartment downstairs after his mother died. She said the stairs were getting too hard, but we all knew she just wanted to be closer to us. She still knits, the scarves are still terrible. We still wear them with pride. Eun-ji became the director of the foundation's largest program. She visits every Sunday for dinner. She brings stories and laughter, and sometimes her elderly mother, who taught Aya to make traditional Korean dishes. The bodyguards found wives and had children there. Children play with the children from the yellow building. Everyone knows everyone, everyone cares for everyone. That is what community looks like, that is what love builds. Tonight, I am sitting at our kitchen table, the same small table from that tiny apartment all those years ago. We kept it when we moved to this bigger place. It reminds us where we started. The refrigerator is covered in drawings, hundreds of them. Layers upon layers of rainbows and cats and people holding hands. Some are faded, some are new, all of them are treasures. Aya is 22 now, she is an art teacher at the yellow building. She teaches children to draw rainbows and cats and whatever else their hearts desire. She tells them the same thing I told her all those years ago: draw 1,000,000 rainbows. I will hang them all on the refrigerator. She came home today with a new drawing. It is different from all the others. It is a single image. A woman in a waitress uniform stands at a table. She is placing a glass of water in front of a man in a suit. The man is looking at her, the woman is not looking at him, she is looking at the water, making sure it is just right. Underneath the drawing, Aya wrote 4 words. This is where it started. I stared at that drawing for a long time. I thought about that night, the tension, the fear, the choice I made without even knowing I was making it. I thought about all the things that choice set in motion: the friendship, the love, the family, the foundation, the thousands of lives touched because one waitress refused to impress anyone. Mr. Kong came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. He looked at the drawing over my shoulder. She is right, he said quietly. This is where it started. I leaned back against him. I did not know, I said. I did not know what that moment would become. Nobody ever does. That is the beautiful part. We just live our lives. We make small choices. We serve water. We go home, and somehow, without realizing it, we change everything. I turned in his arms to face him. His hair is gray now, his face has more lines, but his eyes are the same, the eyes that softened when a waitress looked at him like a man, the eyes that saw his mother in me, the eyes that have looked at me like a rainbow for 20 years. I love you, I said. I love you too, he said. More than water. I laughed that he laughed, and in that small kitchen, surrounded by drawings and memories and a lifetime of love, I understood the moral of this story completely. Life is not about grand gestures. It is not about impressing the right people or climbing the right ladders. It is about showing up as yourself every single day. It is about doing your job well, Whether that job is serving water or teaching art or running a foundation, that IT is about looking at people and seeing humans, not opportunities. That IT is about kindness that expects nothing in return. That IT is about being present, really present, for the small moments, the burned pancakes, the terrible scarves, the drawings on the refrigerator, because those small moments, they are actually the big moments, they are the ones that matter, they are the ones that build families, they are the ones that change lives. You never know who is watching, you never know who needs to be seen. You never know when a simple act of honesty will ripple outward and touch thousands of lives. So be real. Be kind, serve your water like it matters, because it does. Everything matters, every interaction, every choice, every moment of presence. The family you build might be the one you never expected to find, the love you find might come from the most unlikely place, the life you live might become something beautiful beyond your wildest dreams, all because you refuse to impress anyone. All because you chose to be yourself, all because you looked at someone and saw a human being. That is the lesson, that is the truth, that is the story, and it is still being written, every day, with every glass of water, with every drawing on the refrigerator, with every moment of love shared around a small kitchen table. The end is not really an end. It is just another beginning, another chance to be kind, another chance to be real, another chance to build something beautiful. So go, live your life, serve your water. Draw your rainbows, love your people, and remember, all eyes might be on someone else, but the ones who matter, they are the ones who see you, really see you, and stay anyway. That is family, that is love, that is everything. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it moved you, share it, comment below, and let someone know you are never alone.